Revenge. One of the oldest and most commonly used themes in fiction. From Greek tragedies to contemporary movies, vengeance is everywhere, and it never gets old. There is revenge for dogs, superhero revenge, female revenge, horror revenge. Revenge where
I will find you, and I will kill you.
Or revenge that rewrites history itself. But most of them have at least two things in common. A protagonist looking for redemption, and an antagonist or a group who get what they deserve. And the audience leaves satisfied. However, there is a Korean revenge movie that breaks the rules of revenge. This is I Saw the Devil, a story which twists the common narrative of vengeance into something else. It starts like every other revenge plot. A special forces agent's wife is murdered by a serial killer and he seeks vengeance. Through his investigations, he meets and eliminates several vicious criminals until he finds the one. And then we get to the final showdown, a meeting between Avenger and perpetrator. The Punisher, armed with years of training, overpowers the brutal murderer in minutes. Finally, he can get closure and find justice for his wife. But then, he stops and leaves instead. We are not at the end of the story. We are at the beginning.
아직은 아니야. 멀었어 아직.
It's only been 50 minutes into the film's 2-hour 20-minute runtime. I Saw the Devil turns the revenge formula on its head, and the killer is set free. The Avenger becomes the hunter, and the serial killer his prey. Death is not punishment enough. Making his life a living hell and tormenting him until he trembles in fear is the path to vengeance. The path of the devil. When John Wick's dog is killed, he retaliates against the Ukrainian mob by wiping out all of them and achieving redemption. This is the general formula of the revenge narrative. Character A harms character B retaliates against character A. This retaliation often means taking their lives, but not always. It can be monetary, like Danny Ocean robbing the casino of Benedict to get back at him for taking his ex-wife and to humiliate him in the process. It can also be psychological, where the Avenger ruins the existence or personal life of their wrongdoer. A good example of this is Promising Young Woman, where exposing what the perpetrators have done feels more damaging than revenge by murder. But an even more elaborate psychological scheme can be seen in Gone Girl, where Amy takes away her husband Nick's freedom without physically hurting him. Even in some of the more violent revenge movies like Kill Bill, murder is not always the preferred option, nor the most effective. In her killing spree through hundreds of foes, Beatrix decides to leave Elle Driver alive and take her remaining eye instead. Tarantino's revenge plots are also interesting because he repeatedly punishes historical figures who are collectively detested worldwide. With this, he doesn't just change history and creates a more fair universe, but he gives the audience a satisfaction that goes beyond any single protagonist's revenge. It's cultural catharsis. And catharsis is one of the most important parts of a vengeance plot. The viewer needs to feel like the balance is recovered at the end of these films, and everyone gets what they deserve. It's also important to separate reactive and architectural revenge. One which is done without plotting, and one which is meticulously thought through before being carried out. John Wick's revenge is reactive, while Ocean's or Amy's plan is architectural. Or we could mention possibly the greatest and most famous revenge story,
The Count of Monte Cristo,
where the protagonist exacts a wide range of punishments on those who wronged him with a plot designed over decades. Monte Cristo influenced many vengeance stories since its release almost 2 centuries ago, and one of them is the king of revenge movies, Oldboy. South Korean cinema became synonymous with revenge in the 21st century, in large part due to Park Chan-wook's vengeance trilogy in the early 2000s. But Oldboy is still a peculiar case, because on one hand, it takes inspiration from classic literature, such as the 15 years of imprisonment in Dumas' Monte Cristo, but on the other hand, it twists these inspirations and mixes most of the genre elements I've talked about so far. It's both reactive, through the way Odessu seeks revenge, but also architectural, in the way his opponent Woo Jin builds out his plan. it shows both types of avengers. Dae-soo, the victim who carries out the revenge, and Woo-jin, the avenger by proxy, seeking vengeance for his sister. Oldboy also explores revenge by murder, mutilation, and every type of physical violence, and juxtaposes it with psychological devastation, the ultimate move that permanently breaks the mind of the protagonist. It reverses the plot of Monte Cristo, and the imprisoned man we expect to take revenge on his captor becomes the target of his calculated scheme instead. I Saw the Devil is similar in many ways, and now that we've established the elements revenge movies work with, let's see how director Kim Jee-woon turns it into something unique. I Saw the Devil revolves around two opposing characters. The protagonist Soo-hyun, played by Byung-hun, a highly trained National Intelligence Service agent whose wife is murdered, and the antagonist Kyung-chol, played by Min-sik, a ruthless serial killer who targets young women.
야, 이거 더 웃기다. 해머가 아니라. 응? 허우가 날 왜 이런 것만 들고 지랄을 하냐. 나는 정말.
As I said before, the expected outcome of a setup like this would be to follow the Avenger, in this case Soo-hyun, as he finds the killer and punishes him, ending the story. But similarly to Oldboy, the revenge formula is deconstructed, and I Saw the Devil shows how vengeance is never satisfying and never enough, but also how it can corrupt the mind of even the most righteous people. Using the earlier vocabulary, if you look at the movie, we can see how the two sides reflect opposite types of revenge. Soo-hyun carefully plans his revenge, even if it fails in the end. He is the architectural type. He puts a tracking device in the killer, listens in on his conversations, follows him everywhere, and hits him at the most unexpected moments, tormenting him and putting fear into the mind of his prey. But Kyung-chol is not just the target of the vengeance, because his vile personality makes him commit even further acts of violence while he's being chased around. And at one point, he himself takes revenge on Soo-hyun through his family members for his acts against him, just to even the balance, at least in his mind. So he becomes the other type, the reactive avenger. And in a way, so does Soo-hyun, once his plan starts to unravel and he's forced to improvise just to keep up. On the outside, I Saw the Devil looks like a movie dealing with physical revenge. And while it's quite graphic, ultimately it's about psychological terror. Soo-hyun's decision to leave his target alive is to plant fear into the serial killer's mind and make him suffer like his victims did in the last moments of their lives. But to really punish someone so vicious, the hero has to become the anti-hero. Nietzsche writes in his book Beyond Good and Evil, whatever is done from love always occurs beyond good and evil. In general, revenge often happens outside the law. The heroes of these stories act according to their own moral order because institutions fail to reach the justice they deem necessary, so they take it into their own hands. John Wick believes his mission is righteous, but seemingly no amount of dead bodies will zero out the ledger, as Kyle Wiggins discusses in the essay collection American Revenge Narratives.
I think you're addicted to it, to the vengeance.
So this is where the anti-hero as an archetype is much more fitting. The anti-hero is still the protagonist of the story, but instead of the righteous, noble, and easily relatable hero, they act outside the moral code of society and are often selfish. Think of the hard-boiled detectives of classic Hollywood film noirs, or the gangsters we always root for. In I Saw the Devil, this is even more pronounced, because at the beginning, the protagonist is the prime example of a hero. He works for a national organization that protects citizens, stops threats, and serves the best interest of the country. He's also shown to have a loving relationship with his wife, where even during his work that requires him to be serious, he leaves time to sing for his wife in secret to calm her. This is exactly why the sudden change in his character is so recognizable. He doesn't simply become an anti-hero who takes matters into his own hands and tries to get even with those who harmed his family. He becomes a monster himself. He becomes the devil. Director Kim applies the Nietzschean idea that whoever fights monsters must be careful not to become one himself, because the cruelty of Kyung-chol makes it almost impossible to truly punish him enough to tip the balance back. So Soo-hyun has to go to the extremes and show just how ugly revenge can get, which, according to the director, is exactly what shocks people in this film. Kim Jee-woon uses several tools to create a monster out of the protagonist. When he arrives at the greenhouse, we only see him from the back, a dark silhouette approaching. And when he enters, we get a thrilling scene similar to horror movies, where the victim hears someone enter the house. Usually in horror or thrillers, it's the antagonists or the killers who are shown this way. But here, the hero plays the role of the dark, looming presence the viewers only get a glimpse of, to heighten the suspense. And this is further established as we hear the serial killers discuss him at the table.
걔 우리랑 같은 과네. 응? 괴물 출연이네. 재밌다.
Kim Jee-woon is known for his heavy use of close-ups, pulling the camera right into his characters' faces during moments of extreme stress or violence, forcing the audience into an intimacy with feelings they'd rather look away from. Here, it also serves to contrast the opposing sides, or maybe to show how they are not as different as we would think. In the final scene, Kim uses close-ups almost entirely, as the characters go through several emotions. We see Soo-hyun's rage turning into despair as he realizes it's the end of the road. Kyung-chul first laughs at him, teases him, but then his confidence fades and turns into panic and fear. All these close-ups also give the feeling of direct confrontation. We face these people to judge them, to fear for them, to feel sorry for them. Kim creates emotions through these expressions and lets the actors' performances tell and elevate the story. But it's not just the way he's framed. Soo-hyun physically descends into hell. He enters a separate world where deadly criminals show up in taxicabs at night, and serial killers have serial killer friends they invite over for dinner. Because of the transformation of the hero, the world transforms too. The hole is the entrance to the hidden killing room. It sits at the threshold between the outside world and the world of monsters. First, we see it after the murder of Soo-hyun's wife. We exit with a slow dolly shot. Then, when the husband finds the secret room, now we enter, along with Soo-hyun, another symbol of descending into hell and accepting the role of the devil. And at the end of the film, it's his place. He takes his final revenge at the scene of the crime, closing the loop. But this time, the camera is static. We never get the shot of leaving it again. While most revenge movies want the viewer to feel satisfaction in the end, whether through making it even, or through spectacular action scenes and showdowns as the hero cuts through dozens of bad guys, in I Saw the Devil, this catharsis is denied. The audience's own wish for retaliation that has been building up from the start is used against them. From the beginning, Kim makes us despise the antagonist more and more as the minutes go by. First, he makes us sympathize with the couple, showing the vulnerability of the wife isolated in a snowstorm. Then he shows how despicable the killer is as he attacks someone in need of help. And when we think it's bad enough, the woman asks for mercy as she tells him that she is pregnant, which the killer ignores altogether. But it's not just this one victim. Throughout the movie, Kyung-chul does worse and worse things, which serve the filmmaker's plan to manipulate us into agreeing with Soo-hyun's desperate measures. The way Kim structures the film is almost episodic, which gives the audience small bits of catharsis. Kyung-chul commits a violent act, the audience's hatred toward him grows. At the very last moment, Soo-hyun arrives and punishes him. He goes limb by limb, then lets him go again, and it starts all over. With this, he recreates the revenge formula from start to finish in 20-minute chunks. But while we get small satisfactions through this, Kyung-chul's list of sins keeps growing, so we never get closer to getting even. Instead, every time it feels too close to becoming a disaster. Soo-hyun's own acts become questionable. We see his plans slowly falling apart, as the killer causes mayhem along the way and puts everyone in danger while trying to escape his hunter, even though he gets a second chance to end it.
이쯤에서 그만두는 게 어떨까?
So the audience's fantasy of following and enjoying the punishment of a monster ultimately turns into the realization that vengeance will not give satisfaction, but will only bring more pain, chaos, and fear.
그 사람 찾아서 어떤 처벌 가한다고 해도 변하는 거 아무것도 없어요. 복수 같은 건 영화에서나 하는 거지.
I Saw the Devil makes its protagonist mirror the movements and horrifying acts of the wrongdoer, and in this mirror, we see ourselves as accomplices. The audience is the one whose wish turns out to have unexpected and horrible consequences. Take a look at how this scene is shot, for example. We see Soo-hyun from the back as he arrives at his father-in-law's house. The police chief is scolding him, but since we are right behind him, it feels like he's scolding the audience. And earlier in the hospital, the cannibal looks right at us as he explains, laughing, what the consequences are now that Kyung-chul is ticked off. In trying to punish him physically and psychologically, the one who is hurt the most is Soo-hyun himself, as he's unable to achieve true payback for his wife and to come to terms with his own emotions after hurting innocent people along the way. No matter how he tries to suppress his own emotions and become a killer without conscience, he has to face himself and his grief in the end. There is no redemption, there is no satisfaction, just utter despair. Kim Jee-woon explores how revenge movies sell us a lie with happy endings. I Saw the Devil is a hard watch because we have to accept that no matter how much you plan or how hard you hit back, there is no way to recover what's been lost.
이런다고 언니가 살아 돌아오는 것도 아니잖아요.
As a director who loves genre films, he always adds a twist to how he interprets each one. Whether it's horror, a gangster melodrama, a spaghetti western comedy, or a revenge thriller, Kim always tests the boundaries of these formulas and creates hybrids. I Saw the Devil looks at revenge movies from a different perspective and shows the Avenger destroying himself on the long and brutal road to vengeance. We as an audience expect to leave satisfied, the way revenge movies always promise. I Saw the Devil breaks that rule. Kim wants you to leave the way Soo-hyun does, empty and changed.